I think sometimes no is a magical word because sometimes the client will come in and say, this is what we have to do. We have to do all of these things. And I think as the expert, it's often incumbent upon you to say no.
Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories. Welcome back to So Here's My Story. I'm Jody.
I'm Elliot.
And in just a couple minutes, after a couple announcements, we're going to get into Elliot's story, which leads us right into some conversations about how the customer isn't always right. That sometimes it's actually really the best thing for both of you if you tell them when they are wrong.
Just say no.
Just say no. Do we have any big announcements? We are still, I was going to say something slightly jokingly guilty.
Like, I don't know.
So I considered making a joking guilt thing about the fact that we're still hanging at 47 members in the group. But after getting the passive aggressive notification from my my Fitness Pal app last week, I'm second guessing it. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, I got this notification that says, it looks like these notifications aren't doing anything, so we'll just stop sending them. I was like, ooh, passive aggressive. So I won't say anything about needing 3 more people in the group to get to 50.
Jody's all like, I'm not passive aggressive, unlike some people.
All right, tell your story.
Okay, here we go. So here's a story. It's not technically my story, although I am bringing it to you.
Story stealing?
Yes, I'm story stealing. I will take ownership of it now.
Okay.
But I actually got it from a friend of mine who, in a past life, was a moderately successful actor. He had gone to LA, and I'm sure he waited tables, so that wasn't part of the story. But he started getting some parts on HBO and Showtime, did some voiceover work, did some work in commercials, but he never really made it to the point where he's not in acting anymore. But he did have, during that point in his career, some momentum. He picked up some momentum. And we were talking about that. And what he told me, I found to be fascinating. He said that when he received part of a script for something that he wanted to try out for, and he knew he wanted to try out for this character, whatever the character is. And he'd think to himself, okay, let's say the character's name is Jim. He'd think, okay, what kind of person does the director envision Jim to be? And what is a casting director looking for in Jim? Do they think he's angry? Do they think he's got a superior, condescending type attitude? What do they think Jim should be in this?
So kind of like reading an RFP and saying, like, what does the client want?
Correct.
Like, okay.
So he was really trying to figure out what they wanted to see in the audition, and then he would practice and practice and practice and rehearse and practice, and he would try and figure out how he could evoke Jim from his vision of what they wanted. And he said, he got some good feedback and that was fine, but he didn't really get any traction. And he started talking to people who did, which I think is a whole different tangent to go down, but I think it's a great thing to do, to start talking to people who occupied the space where you're trying to get to.
So I'm not allowed to go down that tangent, whatever.
Not right now, but in a minute, maybe you choose to. What his more successful peers told him is that they don't worry about what the director and the casting director and the producer and all these people want. They would take a look at the script and they'd think, who do I think Jim is? And boiled down to its essence, they would walk into the audition and they would show the director their choice for Jim and why that choice is correct.
Oh, I love this.
And so
I hereby let go the other tangent because I'm going straight for this one, but go ahead.
And he realized and started to pick up momentum that the secret to success, at least in that industry, and I would submit in others, is making a choice early, making your choice early as to what you wanted to show, and either convincing the people that that choice was correct, or if it's not, you know what? That's fine. And you can go away. And I thought that was fascinating. And it goes into what I do with clients and what a lot of other companies say, but it stuck with me because it came from acting and auditions, which is the most raw form of how you show up in the world.
Well, especially because it's funny, I really love this topic for all the reasons that we'll get into in a few minutes here. But I didn't see that coming because I think in acting, there is a character. A character has like typically, at least as I imagine it, has very specific shapes and textures and things about it. And you want to try and fit that shape as likely as possible. And yet, so I love that it also comes back to, because I learned this lesson very early on, although I can't say that I learned it to the degree to which I was able to fully step into it right at that point, because I was only like 23, 24. But I was with the architecture firm and I had just taken over the marketing position, and which was hysterical because I was the marketing director and there was no one but me doing marketing. So, and I was 23 and I knew nothing about marketing. But so that was a whole different story.
But you weren't the senior marketing director.
I was the entire marketing department. But we really needed work. We really, really, really needed work, which is why, anyway, that's a whole different story. So we got shortlisted. I had done this proposal and we had gotten shortlisted, and I was so excited. And it literally said in the RFP, you had to do this like design thing for which we didn't often do, and it said, however, we will not be considering additions. This is a renovation only. This is a historic building on the quad for this campus. Additions are not an acceptable option. And our lead designer was hellbent on doing this addition as our scheme. And I was literally like, but it literally says,
so you can't do
an addition. And I thought we're going to get kicked out, and we really needed the work. Like, it was dire. And he was just insistent that that is what they needed and that he was going to show them that. And by golly, we got the project, and there is an addition on that building. And it was a very early seed planted for me about when you are the professional that is being brought in, when you are an expert, when you are the trusted advisor that someone is relying to, that part of what they are buying in you is your expertise. That they want you to say, this is what you need. And the ultimate form of trust is when someone can maybe show you that you actually, because if I was the expert, like if I knew what I needed, I'd be the expert, right?
Right. And so a lot of times I think that as opposed to every negotiating book on the planet, the key is to go for no. I think sometimes no is a magical word, because sometimes the client will come in and say, this is what we have to do. We have to do all of these things. And I think as the expert, it's often incumbent upon you to say, no, that's not the way we're going to go. We're going to go this way. And here's
not
why.
Not as a tactic. You don't do that. But when you, and I will just acknowledge some of this comes with being more and more seasoned. Like I'm able now to be like, that is a really bad plan.
Right.
Because I can see, like, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
But that's the mark of expertise, isn't it? To be able to look at what the client says, hey, I think we should go this direction, and be able to draw upon your expertise and say, you know what? And you don't say it as bluntly, maybe, but no, that's not the way.
Well, here's the gamble that you make. A couple things. One, I think you have to be willing, you have to know whether or not you're willing to do it their way, because that's a whole other layer to this. You can make your stand for, you need to do this. And then, because one of two things happens when you make that kind of expert stand, I think, is you either knock it out of the ballpark because they're like, holy cow, we didn't even know that's what we needed. Clearly you understand us even better than we did. You're our person. Or they're completely repulsed and or just like, wow, you really don't understand us, and they're gone.
But then you have to be willing to walk away as well.
Those are your choices. Like, am I willing to walk away? Am I willing to do it their way? So that's the very, very small but important version of this is there's a woman who cut my hair for years and years and years and years, partly because I came in this one day and said, I think I want like bangs and da-da-da. And she goes, no. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And she goes, first of all, you're going to hate bangs because bangs are great for like a week and then they're in your eyes and you don't like doing anything hair maintenance-y. So you're going to hate that. Fair. She goes, second of all, that, and then she went into this long, I can't remember exactly where I wanted my hair cut, but she said, for your face shape and the way your bone structure is, whatever, I don't remember the things, you either want hair here, here, or here. There were links that fit with my face shape. And I so love that because I know nothing about hair. I can look at a picture of, a lot of people will say like, bring in a picture of a celebrity. I'm like, well, I don't look like Deborah Messing. I don't have Deborah Messing hair. You can cut my hair that way. It's not going to look like that. And So I love having somebody who will tell me when I'm wrong or who can see more than I can see about things I know nothing about.
Yeah. And it was actually brought home to me on Friday of this past week when I had to have, I went to Mary Gardella, who did our photographs for our So Here's My Story banner and everything on the website. And I needed new photos taken in part because, the beard. So I show up and people are like,
who's the dude with the beard?
Who's the dude with the beard? And also for the speaker
should
site.
I go on our all of our materials and then sketch you on a beard?
With a Sharpie. So I decided, especially for the speaker website, as I go for speaking engagements, I wanted more shots. And I loved how we'd go into the studio, we'd do these things and whatever, and Mary would, and you have to bring a number of outfits, and Mary would go, yeah, no, yeah, not wearing it. No, I don't like the way that looks. No, let's not do that. No, that's, whatever. Now, in that session, there are both sides of it, because one of the first things she said to me is, you didn't bring jeans. And I said, no, I don't. This is my speaker website. When people engage me as a speaker, they're engaging me not to speak on law, but as somebody who has been a lawyer. They want me to look sharp and professional, but they don't want me to show up in the world as you could if you're a software developer or a graphic designer. They expect a certain look. And I don't want to present as the guy in jeans because I'm not going to be on stage in jeans. And she said, but you're a human being. Humans wear jeans. And I said, the people who are coming here, or the people I want to come here, are considering me for their event. I need them to envision me as the guy in front on stage, giving the keynote, giving the breakout session. Now,
that could be a whole other episode.
That's
topic,
a whole other episode.
Because I might agree with her. Not for all the pictures, but somewhere to see you in human form, not just lawyer form.
Right. Well, but the point is that she
Jody, here's the point.
She could say within the context, I don't like that pose. I don't like that outfit, etc. But there came a point, this was my line, I didn't want to appear in jeans. That's not what I envisioned my site to be. And at some point, while she could give a recommendation, she could decide, you know what, I'm not even doing this session if you're not in jeans. Or, okay, within that limitation, okay, let's go.
Perfect. This reminds me a lot. It always comes back to that sort of committed but not attached. Like, I'm committed to, there are certain things that I will not do. For instance, if somebody wants me to facilitate a session with their leadership team and they want me to magically navigate it to a particular outcome, like get them to agree to this.
Right.
There's almost no circumstances under which I will agree to that, because that's manipulation. That's not facilitation. But there are times where I think things are a bad idea or the wrong focus, and I will speak to that. I'm committed to giving you my expert thoughts on what will get you what you really need. But then I have varying levels of degrees of, I have to step back and make if they're not willing to hear that, if they're not interested in that, if they want to go at it a certain way that I think is, here's the continuum. There's a continuum of, this is a waste of everyone's time and money because that is the wrong focus. Versus it's maybe just not the best way to go. If it's on the best way to go, I'll do it. But the closer it gets to, we're actually wasting your time and resources, then I have a decision to make. Like, do I do that as a check the box kind of? There have been times when I was growing my business where the answer was, sure, I'll do that because I needed the revenue.
That's right.
As I've built that, I get to be a little bit more discerning about, the times where I'm like, I won't participate in wasting your time, that I don't think this is the right thing. But that committed to the client having what they want, but without it feeling like judgment or attachment. I mean, if in that moment Mary had said, well, then I'm not taking your picture if you won't do jeans. I mean, that would be a weird place to make a stand on.
It would be. But if she said, every single image I do, I have to stand behind 100% or whatever. So, okay, well, that's her choice. It would be a weird place to make a stand. Right.
But that's her choice
that's her choice as an artist and as an entrepreneur and all that stuff. But at the same time, I am relying on her to, this is what I'm wearing. This is the costume that I'm going to be in, a blazer or a button-down shirt or whatever it is.
Costume.
Well, that's what it is.
No, you're like a Flash Gordon costume or something. But yeah.
But this is how I want to appear in the world. And now I'm not going to tell you that I need to be sitting at a desk with my arms folded and whatever. I need you within whatever clothes that I choose to wear. I need you to make me look human, not boring. I need you to bring out personality. I need use your craft to accomplish what I need. And in that, I need her to say, yeah, that idea you had to do this. Yeah, don't do that. It just doesn't work.
This is a huge distinction in consulting and coaching and support and every kind of service industry thing, I think, is whether you need the person to come with direction or whether you need the person you already have all your own direction and you just want them to implement. And I think and all those people get thrown into one big bucket. But I think it's really important to be clear on that ahead of time as to whether you're looking for someone to guide you or whether you want someone to be doing it sort of locked arm done with you or done for you, or they are just essentially an outsourced employee that you're telling exactly what to do.
Well, right. And so going back to your hair, by the way, when I go in for hair, I don't want creative suggestions.
Right.
I just want, this is how I do my hair, cut it up, make it look clean, but whatever. But I think the point is, yes, you have the right and the responsibility to figure out what kind of feedback or interaction you want. And then on the other side, the professional has the responsibility to figure out what role they want to play and what role they do not accept playing.
Well, this is the big distinction that I have made. We always joke about, I think you've introduced me as like Jody Hume. She's the best. She is at whatever it is she does. That it's so hard to describe what I do.
Whatever it is you do.
This gets at the core of the distinction that I make with coaching, because I think of coaching, and this is just my definition. I think of it as, helping, somebody's at point A and they want to get to point B, and I'm going to help forge for lack of a better word, curriculum. Like, what's the path? I'm going to help you get there step. And I'm telling you, that to me feels like somebody coming and metaphorically sitting down at my table, sort of putting their hands together and saying, okay, what are we doing today? Where should we focus today? And that I am driving that ship. That is not the work that I do. I am more, which is interesting because it's almost the opposite of what we're talking about here in some ways. On the facilitation side, this is a little bit different, but on the one-on-one, I'm certainly giving my advice and guidance as it comes to me. But to me, the value that I am providing, and this is what my clients say as well, is this like navigate. They're coming to me with things that they need help sorting through, triaging. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm helping them figure out their own stuff. It's almost like dumping out their bag and figuring out what's there and where are they stuck and what needs to happen next. And it's triaging in the moment. But they are already sort of forging their own path. So it's the distinction between whether you need somebody to help you with something, or you want somebody to tell you what you need. But
the other part of what I hear you doing is kind of a combination between those. So for example, if somebody comes to you and says, you know what, I need my company to double in size, and I need you to help me get there because there are a lot of personnel issues, there are a lot of interpersonal relationships. And you obviously would speak to this better than I would, but a lot of times what I hear the dialogue that you talk about is, well, let's first talk about why you believe you need your company to double in size. And maybe it's because, for this real reason, and they're like, okay, let's go.
Yep.
But
fact checking that instead of just running with it is where my expertise really, because a lot of times that's not quite the right goal. And I would feel irresponsible if I helped someone get to a goal that wasn't the right goal for them. Like, that's a really unfortunate thing to happen. But to your point, I now know as a consultant or any kind of service provider, knowing where your sweet spot is and where it isn't, because let's say it is the right goal and they want someone to rigorously have Gantt charts and accountability and check in with everybody and manage them along the process and make sure they did their things. And if they didn't, did you do your things? Did you do your things? You can probably hear it in the tone of my voice because I'm starting to sound condescending about it. That's not my thing. I'm not, that to me feels like babysitting. It's an incredibly valuable role in the world. And there are people who are really, really good at it, like project managing that thing. I am not. Like, that's not my thing. And the faster that you can, as a business, like you said, focus in on who you are not every bit as much as who you want to be, and making that distinction clear, it makes it better for everybody.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. When I talk to business people and, oh, she was excellent. She really held my feet to the fire on every single thing. Okay. And that's what they needed.
Yeah. I have names of people who can do that for you.
And,
that's what you want.
And apparently, and the she in that sentence, right. I'm sure identified that was a particular skill that she had and how she wanted to appear in the world. And there's all good things with that. But you made a decision as a professional that that's not A, your strength, or B, your desire or what you wanted to do.
And here's the scary part, because I don't want to. I want to get back to your original story. I think the brave/scary part of that is owning that at the marketing stage, because you're basically saying, without saying it, I'm willing to not get this job because I'm going to stand up here the way that in the shape that I think it needs to be. And that may not be the shape that you want. And I have to be okay with that. That's a big decision.
It's a huge decision. I see this, and this is in my world, and we always joke around about this. But when I see young lawyers who are 2-3 years out, they start their own firms, and then you see that, well, I do divorce work and tax and workers' compensation and do wills, and because I understand and I'm sensitive to the fact that they need money. They might have families to support, et cetera.
And they're throwing some spaghetti against a wall as to what their sweet spot is.
But they also have decided, they've gone out to the market and they've seen the market needs all of these things. So I'm going to figure that I'm going to provide all of these, and somebody's going to walk in the door. And I really, and maybe this is because I've been at this for so long, but I really believe that the best place to be is, as the actor in my story did, getting to the point where you can tell people, this is who I am, this is what I do. If you like the choice, we can do great things. If you don't, I can give you names.
Yeah. No, I think there's a couple, but it's a very scary thing to niche, to say this is who I do. And I will say there's sort of a blend to niche. I think sometimes when people think of niching, like to take your lawyer example, say like, well, I do wills. You can say I specialize in wills. And then if somebody literally walks in the door, or figuratively, just, you're not proactively marketing that you do contract review. But if someone says like, hey, can you do a contract review? You can still take it. The point is like niching from this is the work that I do, from an outward standpoint, I think is a step in that direction, until you have so much of that work that then you can just say, this is my sweet spot. This is exactly what I do. But it's interesting. Jason Momoa did something very similar with his audition for the Khal Drogo part. Is that his name? Yeah. Anyway, the Game of Thrones role. He came in, and I believe I might be morphing the story a tiny bit for reasons that because it's Jason Momoa and he did the haka, but that's the other part of the story. I don't think he read the script. He came in and instead, are you familiar with the haka?
No.
It's this tribal dance that they do in like New Zealand, and it's an indigenous ritual dance that's very intense, and it's lots of like and like posing and these faces, and it's just full of like this really intense energy. And coming in to audition for this, instead of reading scripts or doing, he did that. And it just embodied like what he thought this character had. And he was dead on. And as I understand it, like that was it. They were done. They're like, this is the dude for the thing. But I may not remember all the details of that story because I really love the haka, and I don't have a hard time looking at Jason Momoa. So
fair enough.
I think I might be a little flush, but taking ownership of what you think. I think it's one thing to take ownership of it as a project goes on, but I do really think it's an interesting choice in that moment of like, what do you think gets in the way of wanting to say like, this is what you need. This is what this character should look like. This is what this project should look like. This isn't what it should be.
I think it's a fear of losing the part. Geez, if I don't give them what they want, then I'll lose the parts of what do they want. And I think it's an insecurity and maybe a lack of experience, a lack of comfort with who you are and who you want to be. And I know I'm saying those in negative terms, as if somebody who goes in wondering what the other side wants is weak in some way. And I don't mean it that way. But I do believe that one of the primary reasons that people don't make a choice and go in with their choice is because of the fear of guessing wrong.
But it's interesting because I want to dissect that into two different fears of guessing wrong. I think on the one side, it can be the fear of the not getting the work, which has a very practical application.
It does.
So that's fine. And sometimes you may say, although it could be argued you have a better chance of getting the work if you actually make a stand, but you also have a better chance of not getting it. You're sort of upping the polarity of your chances there, I think. But I have seen people less likely to make a stand even when they're not in a position that they desperately need the work. Because I think that fear of appearing wrong, that fear of having somebody say like, no, that's not what we want, goes deeper and more, truly to like an insecurity than it does just simply needing the work. It's very easy to say like, well, we really have to make sure we get the job. That's a very nice thing to hide behind. But I think there's something really daunting about making a stand and saying, this is what I think, and then it being very clearly negated as not the right thing.
So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories. You can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best
Lovingly
of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us. Which is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jody Hume.
And I'm Elliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.